This is Sales Grit, the enterprise sales podcast dedicated to helping you win more deals and to help you separate yourself from the pack. I'm VK. Let's get after it. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sales Grit, a podcast dedicated to helping elevate the profession of sales. I'm VK, and I'm the CEO of Prolific.ai. Our technology helps sales reps sell smarter together and win more deals, all inside of Salesforce. Let's get after it. I'm really excited to be joined by Michael Harness from G2. Mike, please say hello to everyone and tell us a little bit about yourself and what G2 does.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. And VK, thanks for having me on. Mike Harness, I am the head of sales for the Americas here at G2. Think anybody who carries a quota in our organization in the Americas, that is sort of my world. And been at G2 for a couple of years now. And yeah, G2 is sort of the place to go for software. And what that means is, if you think about the world and how people make decisions today, people are looking at reviews for the next restaurant they want to go to, the next piece of, the next, say, TV that they want to buy. So it makes a whole lot of sense to also have reviews available on software out there when businesses or individuals are looking to purchase a piece of software, right? So we provide a platform that allows users of software to leave reviews on that software, and which better enables buyers of software to make really informed, good decisions as they are considering software.
That's awesome. Like, G2 is an absolute darling in Chicago. I know you're not based in Chicago, but an absolute darling. You guys have raised awesome rounds and on an absolute tear right now. Tell us a little bit about your team, how big it is, how many sellers in the Americas there are, in North America, and how it's kind of built, because it's pretty scalable model you guys have.
Yeah, so the team, overall go-to-market team globally is about 150 individuals, and that's inclusive of sales and service, anything related to our go-to-market engine. Here in the Americas, we have somewhere in the neighborhood of 90 sellers and leaders, so quota-carrying individuals.
That's amazing. Yeah, so I had the opportunity to meet Godard many years ago, and that was when Salesforce acquired SteelBrick, and then I met him again when G2 was just taken off. So congrats on a big responsibility, tremendous growth. But why don't we take a step back and talk to us a little bit about your career? How did you get to G2, and what was your path? What were some of the roles that you've had, and why sales?
Yeah, I don't have a great answer for the why sales. I think coming out of college, I graduated from University of Georgia in 2000 with a finance degree. I didn't necessarily want to apply that finance degree and go into banking or something like that, but I was very motivated by money. So the advice I got was the best way to earn a good living, especially right out of school, would be to get into sales. So again, not a great answer, but being money motivated and being hungry to start my career, that's kind of where I landed, and I haven't looked back since in a little over 20 years. Nice. Early in my career, I was a field sales rep for Coca-Cola. Then I had a quick stint in pharmaceuticals, which at the time I was growing up in sales, pharmaceuticals was one of those jobs that sort of everybody wanted, right? Somebody had quote unquote made it when they got in pharmaceuticals. What I learned pretty quickly going into that was I wanted that experience of actually closing deals. And this is no disrespect to the pharmaceutical sellers out there, but that job was largely about influencing the prescribing habits of physicians, which is to say you didn't get the satisfaction of actually seeing them sign a contract and back in that day, fax it back to you, or, in today's, seeing that DocuSign hit your inbox and getting that satisfaction. So really wanted to get into a closing role. And I just so happened to have a friend that was at the same pharmaceutical company that landed a role at Career Builder. So not knowing anything about recruitment advertising or digital advertising space, I took a leap of faith and joined Career Builder in 2006. And that's, I would say, was a moment that was really an inflection point in my career. Because getting into enterprise sales specifically, seeing the deal sizes and how exciting it was to close 6-figure and 7-figure deals was amazing, and something that I felt really strongly was where I wanted to spend my time. And then getting into Career Builder as well afforded me some opportunity to do things like mentoring of other reps that came into the business, becoming a peer leader and getting involved in some of the development programs, some of the onboarding and things of that nature that Career Builder was doing for a really large sales force and a really impressive sales program. What that really helped me discover was I was actually getting more satisfaction out of the mentoring that I was doing, some of the peer leadership I was doing, some of the training work that I was doing than I was out of closing deals for myself. And so it kind of dawned on me at that point that, hey, maybe being an individual contributor, while it's got its great things about it, I really want to try my hand at leadership and see how that goes. If I get this much satisfaction out of helping people in the small roles that I'm playing, again, in mentorship and training, what if that was my entire job every day, was just to help others, reach their full potential and succeed in the role? And so in 2008, got my first opportunity to lead a team. And I've never really looked back. I've always, since that moment, felt like I'm in the right role for my personality. And it is the thing that I feel the most successful in doing, is building teams and helping people reach success.
That's amazing. And then after Glassdoor, that's what kind of propelled you to G2, right? That's how you had a great run at Glassdoor.
Yep.
I think you did, you invested in all this kind of stuff, but then you went to G2 and things kind of got really interesting for it.
Yeah. So, yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say Glassdoor was an incredible experience for me. That was an opportunity to really get in on the ground floor. I think I don't remember my exact number, but I was right around employee 100 at Glassdoor. And the vision that was pitched to me by Robert Homan, the CEO over there, and the sales leadership that was there at the time was, hey, if you come take a chance on our little company, we're going to provide you incredible opportunity to grow your career and help us build this business basically from the ground up. And all of that came true. I am so fortunate to have had that opportunity to go in and start just building out the mid-market business at Glassdoor, and then get the opportunity to manage ICs and then manage other leaders, and help to build out a vertical when we started to sell to staffing firms. So got just over the 6+ years that I was there, just incredible opportunity to not only grow as a professional, but also help to build a company from, very low revenue numbers all the way up to a company that was acquired for over $1 billion.
That's amazing. So, Mike, tell us a little bit. So in our community of listeners, there's people that are in various areas of their career, right? Like you've got entry level people that are junior in sales, and you've got senior level people that are running companies and sales organizations, right? But I just find it fascinating that you made that decision that you wanted to go into leadership. And I know that you and I have both worked with people that are just professional sellers, and they're going to be professional sellers for the rest of their lives because they don't want to get into leadership. But then there's people that we both work with, including ourselves, that we wanted to go from selling into leadership, right? So what were some of the things that you did to position yourself for that opportunity? And how did you know that leadership was the right thing for you?
Yeah. I will say it's not an exact science, right? Navigating your way through your career it's never going to be perfectly mapped out for anyone. So I think a piece of advice is, if you're interested in a role, whether that be a sales IC looking at sales leadership, whether that's an IC maybe looking at training and enablement or customer success or operations or whatever the case might be. One, network with people, right? Find some people that you can talk to that are in those roles and that are doing those jobs day to day, and try to learn what that experience is like, and then try to visualize yourself in that role and whether or not that would make you happy and that you would find success there, right? It's a very inexact science, but I would encourage people to just network in to those areas that you're interested in, and try to understand what it's really like to be in that role. Not what you've built up in your own head as to what that role is, but actually speak to people that do it, and try to discover whether or not you can take that educated risk to try to go into one of those roles. The second thing is I would say specifically for ICs and sales, looking at sales leadership, is find some avenues and some opportunities within your go-to-market organization where you can do more than just what's on your job description, right? Because there are, hopefully, if you're in a successful sales organization, more than 50% of your peers are hitting their sales goals just like you, right? So the question then becomes, how do you differentiate yourself from all of those other people that are achieving goals? And make yourself known around the organization as somebody that's high potential to take that next step in your career. So examples could be if your company has a mentorship program or some sort of buddy program for new hires, newly promoted people, et cetera, get involved in that, right? If you're a successful rep, pass that wisdom, pass that knowledge on to other people to help make them better. In that mentoring experience, you'll learn and understand pretty quickly whether or not that's something you want to spend your time on day to day as a sales leader, right? So going down the avenue of mentoring and buddying, but also find projects within the organization where you believe your knowledge of customers or prospects can be helpful to the growth of the organization, and try to get yourself involved in those things, right? Whether it's we have councils for each one of our groups, each one of our segments in sales, that are peer nominated, right? So the best of the best in enterprise, those individuals are on our enterprise council, and they're meeting with our product leaders, with our research leaders, with our marketing leaders on a biweekly basis, and getting that exposure and working on projects to help better our overall company. And so those are just two examples, but it's finding ways to do more on behalf of the company to demonstrate that you can be a larger contributor, but it's also putting yourself in positions where you can kind of test out the thesis of whether or not you actually, want to put aside the sales bag as an IC and actually spend your time on managing and mentoring and coaching ICs to be the best that they can be.
That's awesome. So I want to spend a little bit more time on ICs and how the profession has changed before I shift gears a little bit and talk about how second and third line leaders are developing leaders, right? But, if you take a look back on your career and how our industry has changed, what are some things that pop out at you as, wow, these have been really awesome innovations and advancements in our space, and some things that IC should be looking out for because they just didn't experience it when we started, several years ago doing what we're doing.
Yeah. I mean, I think a couple things really jump out to me and how the profession has changed. One is the automation, right? The amount of tools and things that salespeople have at their disposal to help them do their job and do their job more efficiently is off the charts. If you look at the sales lofts of the world, the gongs of the world, all of these tools that are helping people get better. Gone are the days where, in reference to gone are the days where a sales rep has to furiously write down notes to keep up with what happened in the conversation when they're speaking to a prospect or a client, right? It's recorded. They can go back and listen to it. And what that allows sellers to do is be present in the moment and actually engage in a conversation, as opposed to trying to furiously write all these notes, right, and make sure that they keep up with those things that they're going to leverage as they continue that selling process, right? So I think the tools that are at our disposal we've never been in a better position to effectively do our jobs than we are right now relative to that. The other thing is just the rise of data as it relates to selling. I think when you and I grew up in sales, a lot of the sales motion was about building relationship, right? You go meet people in person, you take them to dinner, you form that nice relationship with somebody. And therefore that, that saying of people buy from people they like really came into play when I was growing up in sales. Nowadays, especially with the pandemic, right? There's a lot more disconnection. There's a lot more people involved in the buying process from the buyer side. And it's really about the data that you can deliver on what your solution solves for and quantifying what that impact will be. So the sellers that I'm seeing on my team that are the best are not the largest personalities in the room. It's the people that can really build a narrative and a story about the solution that's founded on data and the impact that that solution is going to make on the buyer's business.
That's amazing that you say that. And I feel like I learned that really early on, that you needed to have a business conversation with whoever you were talking to or whoever you were trying to sell to. And I think you're right that the best sellers are the ones that can actually listen to understand, not listen to respond, listen to really understand and consume the information, but then personalize the solution to the requirements that the customer has, right? And it might be the same exact solution, but you're solving different business challenges for every customer with a solution, right? And I think it's also the hardest thing to do, right? So when you think about skill development and quantifying a business case or building a business case, what are some tips and tricks that you've learned or you've seen some other team members do that could help our listeners?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing to do, especially if you're talking with your true decision maker, right? Your budget holder. I think the best thing that sellers can do is their preparation and the discovery that they do before they get on a phone call, right? If I'm talking to you, VK, and you're the CEO of your company, your time is very precious, right? So I can't come into that call and say, hey, so tell me about your top 3 challenges, right? What I really need to do is, as much as I can, through all of the access that we have online to LinkedIn, to, all of these tools and resources, hell, just even Google searches, right? But prepare myself and understand who you are as the CEO of that company, what business challenges your company is trying to solve for your customers and your partners, and how my solution potentially fits in to those things, right? So it's not an exact science to do that preparation and research, but you got to take it as far as you possibly can. And you have to answer kind of like the 101 questions prior to getting on that call. Because again, VK, your time is extraordinarily valuable.
Yep.
And I don't want to waste it on the basics, right? I want to get into a true conversation about what you're trying to solve, or what I glean that you're trying to solve. I want to get confirmation that those are challenges of yours. And then I want to have a real conversation about whether or not my solution can help your organization. And like I said, back to the data, what kind of impact it would actually have.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I think the best sales pros are taking a look at like companies, like roles, like challenges, and drawing some sort of conclusion with all the data that's out there to say, hey, 70% of the time, this is something that we've really, really helped the business with, and this is what they're seeing today. I always find it fascinating how business cases are built. And, 2 like-sized companies could be experiencing very different things, but the same solution can solve those same challenges, right? Or it might not. But nonetheless, that business case is absolutely relevant. And I love hearing how people actually build them,
Yeah.
Cool. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about, your role right now. And, there's a lot of people listening that are in your role, where they're second, third line leaders running big sales organizations, having managers reporting to managers, reporting into them. So when you think about building leaders and when you think about the things that need to go into building leaders, what are the things that you would give some perspective on that could help those second, third line sales leaders that are trying to grow their teams and businesses?
Yeah. And specifically, you're talking about sort of evaluating people to go into leadership roles or developing them once they're there.
I think both. Like, how are you identifying them? How are you investing in them? And then how are you helping them scale their careers?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing in terms of I'm a pretty simple guy, right? So I like to try to keep these things simple. But when we're evaluating talent for leadership, right, it's pretty simple. You're looking at past performance and you're looking at future potential. And the potential one is the difficult one to get really tangible and nail down. But I would go back to something I said earlier, which is evaluating what individuals do that's not in their job description. So say, as an example, we're evaluating an individual contributor for a potential leadership position. I want to understand what that person has done for the greater good of their organization, right? How are they contributing outside of just hitting quota to that organization? Are they helping their peer set get better at their roles every day? Are they helping their leadership team push, the product team, the marketing team, and others around the organization? Are they involved in councils and other things around the organization that, again, better the entire organization rather than just help them hit quota? Because if you see that side of an individual that is not, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, but is not selfish around their quota, but is rather selfless about the growth of the entire organization, then you can start to understand what the potential of that individual is to lead other people. Absolutely. Right? And then once we get people into leadership positions, we want to focus people on sort of like the core functions of that job and how to do those exceptionally well. And so number one job of a leader on a team is to have the very best talent on your team, right? So the priority of recruiting top talent, of managing, coaching, and developing the individuals that are on their team to be their very best, that is job number one, and that will never change, right? But then also looking at things like, are you achieving your goals? But how are you going about doing that, right? Is the customer first? And are we truly serving our customers? Or are we selling deals in a way that is not necessarily customer first and customer friendly? So, right, it's like the two focus areas are focus on your talent and the individuals on your team, and focus on your customers and how you're serving them to make sure that they're getting the most value out of your product and your solution that they can possibly get. And I think if you focus people in on those two core things, you're going to have amazing success as a leader.
That's sound advice. And I think, man, it's a tough one, right? Because at the end of the day, it's all about your team, but it's really about the customer. And then you're always looking to invest in the team in certain ways. I know for me, I've always looked for resiliency, right? I've always looked for, how does someone manage complexity, right? And I don't know who said this, it's a quote, but out of distinct complexity comes distinct simplicity, right? Like, can they make things simpler? Are they resilient? I want to hear about the failures. I don't want to hear about how many times you made club. I don't want to hear about how awesome you are. We know you're great at your job, right? Talk to me about the things that have gotten you here, right? I think emotional intelligence is really big too, right? All of these things people need to develop those skill sets, especially as they think about going into leadership, then going up the level, and then going up to another level. It's a lifelong journey. It's not like you've done it and it's over, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. It's funny you say that because it's anybody who has been through a recruiting process with me that's listening to this will probably chuckle a little bit. But when I'm asked what I'm looking for in individuals, whether it's an IC role, whether it's a leadership role, I always say it's simply two things, right? It's brains and drive. Can I find smart people with good IQ, with good EQ, And can I find people that are sort of intrinsically driven and motivated to succeed at whatever task they're doing, at whatever challenge is in front of them? If we have those two things, brains and drive, more than likely we can coach and teach you everything else, right? But I can't coach you to be smarter, and I can't coach you to be driven.
Right.
So if we have those two things in individuals, I would say the vast majority of the time we're going to win and we're going to be successful together.
That's awesome. I love it. Absolutely love it. Brains and drive. I think I'm going to use that. I hope you don't mind. All right. Last question here. I know you're a busy man. So if you were to filter all of the learnings during your career and the advice you've given or gotten, what advice do you have for our listeners that want to be as successful as you've been in your sales career?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that I'm seeing that I'm trying to reflect on and, try to coach and give advice to people on is decisions and choices are not final, right? So I think people are very wrapped up right now in my career progression and how do I get from being an SDR into a closing role, and am I doing it in the same timetable as the fellow that sits next to me or the woman that sits next to me? And what I'll tell you is this career is a long journey. It's gonna have its hiccups. You're not going to get that promotion that you were hoping for in the exact time that you were hoping to get it. But that doesn't mean that it's over, right? That doesn't mean just because, the person sitting to your left got promoted ahead of you does not mean that promotion is not coming for you as well, as long as you stick to the grind and persevere through that. And in fact, like that probably ends up making you stronger, right? So be the very best at what you're doing today. Put your head down and grind. And when you look up, when you come up for air, there will be opportunity for you, right?
Awesome.
And the other thing that I would say is this is going to come across hopefully not terribly cheesy, but also just find something you enjoy doing it and then try to be the best at that, right? There's nothing more painful that I see in other people's careers that are my age. They've spent 20 plus years doing things that they really don't enjoy, right? And that has an impact on not only your professional life, but on your personal life, on how you interact with your friends and family. So, if I could give people advice, it's try to find something that you enjoy doing, and then try to be the best at that.
I love that. It impacts your health too.
Yeah.
It impacts so many things. Mike, I can't thank you enough. I know our listeners got a ton of valuable insights and information from our conversation today. Thank you so much. And everyone out there, let's get after it. Thanks, Mike.
All right. Thank you.